everyone. How nice to see all your lovely faces on my screen. Welcome. My name is Liz Moseley. I'm in a different background than I normally am because I just don't know anymore what I am and am not allowed to do or where I'm meant to be. So don't tell on me. It's a real pleasure to be here this evening for what I hope will be a borderline chaos, really exciting, fun and enjoyable evening with some really extraordinary women, one of whom I've had the pleasure of meeting before, Helen Lederer, who did a Thinking with us when the world was, when it was okay for us to be in real life, physical, close to one another. We're also joined by Emma Kennedy and by Angela Makholwa, and we're going to be talking about the Comedy Women in Print Prize. Whoop, whoop. For those of you that haven't joined a Think-In before, it's not a panel, so while we'll definitely hear from Angela and from Helen and from Emma about comedy writing, about women in publishing, and about all the stuff that's interesting in that space, we want to hear from you as well. So please do join in with Meripy in the chat. Put up your little blue digital hand if you can find it, click participants and put your hand up if you want to come on screen and talk to us about the books you're reading, what you find funny, anything that you think is relevant from what comes up in the discussion. It's a Think-In, so it's not meant to be all about me, it's meant to be all about what you all think too. Thank you very much to everybody who is here. I'm going to go straight to Helen, the extraordinary and wonderful Helen Lederer, who has positioned herself artfully in relation to her vagina pen logo behind her. There you go, that way.
Nice.
Helen, thanks for being here. Can you tell us a bit about why you started this prize?
Yes, it's really nice. I'm really, because I'm my lefts and rights. This is a good position, isn't it? I'm just to the right of the nib. Sometimes when we show people the logo, people have said, "Oh, nice pen," and you just go, "It's not a pen." Anyway, entirely. So I wrote a comedy novel. Like, my lovely colleagues Emma and Angela are amazingly prolific authors, and I love their work. I've read both their work, and I have written one comedy novel, Losing It, and actually it was nominated for the, I have to just put this in now and then I'll shut up. Well, it's significant. It was nominated for the PG Wodehouse Comedy Literary Prize, which is the only literary prize at that point that existed. And there are statistics that I make up slightly because I'm lazy and that changes, but I think in about 17 or 14 years, 3 women only ever won it. But I am grateful for my nomination, because, oh, that's the phone, but it's no one I know, and it's probably just, the phone always goes when I'm a bit depressed and people are selling me things. I just siren in those kinds of calls when I'm down. Anyway, and I have been a judge on various prizes, and I looked around and I just thought the reason that I set it up, I had the idea to, was because there was no comedy literary prize for women's fiction. It just didn't exist. And then you look at it further and you just go about all the stats about other prizes, and I love to hear the other writers and other people in the room what they think is that a lot of the winning novels don't even have women as characters in it. There's all sorts of evidence piling up the more and more you look, that it is about celebration, recognition and visibility, and that happens to chime a huge moment. Can a moment be chimed? But 5 years ago, nobody said it was a rubbish idea except one literary agent who worried that there wasn't enough female comedy literary fiction out there to warrant a prize. Hence I said, well, that's why we need the prize. So I've sort of given up other things, like everything else, probably just to get it to year 2. So it isn't a relaxing life because it's complex and all I talk about is quit. But the fact that we've got here with an amazing set of judges, an amazing shortlist, means that I think I've done something right. even though means I can't do too many other things, like obviously cleaning surfaces, which is a priority.
Well, on behalf of those of us who like reading funny books, thank you for having dirty surfaces, because I think, given the choice, I think you're repping the rest of us there. So you're in year 2 and it's tough.
Yeah.
Can you say why it's such hard work for something that's so joyful and such a give back?
Well, I suppose I should be more celebratory, because the fact that, you know, people like Emma Kennedy, who is very accomplished and well known, has supported this. So the quality of the judges, you know, you have to. I've learned all sorts of things. Amazingly well known and accomplished comedy practitioners are supporting this for no money. And I mean, you think about other prizes like the Booker Prize. In fact, the more prestigious and the prize, the less women win, interestingly. But we are changing that. And I think, you know, nobody has any money right now, and even asking for money is awkward because of where money should be going. But I've managed to get this far because of the belief of the recognition and the support of people and volunteers. It's amazing. And I think if we can get through into year 3, because the unpublished winner of unpublished women who win this, an unpublished woman who wins this becomes published by Harper Fiction. So you're nurturing talent that possibly wouldn't have been nurtured in any other way before this prize at the moment. And then you're recognizing those people that deserve recognition. And then we put comedy graphic novelists in this year as well, because they are completely unsung. So yeah, I can't, when I talk about it, and I should be more buoyant, I think I'm just so close to it.
Yeah.
But I think it is a useful thing to have done at a climate when there is no parity, and it goes quite deep. This visibility is actually insidious.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm going to come to Emma, because
we've been very funny. Sorry.
No
humour, nil humour.
3 laughs across the course. We'll let you know when you've hit them.
Excellent.
Up. Emma, hello. Thanks for being here. The spectacular Emma Kennedy. I do really just want to talk to you about Lego, but I don't think I'm really meant to.
I'll talk about Lego till the cows come home.
I know. I mean,
look, there's Lego behind me. Look.
Anyway. Thank you for being here. Thank you for judging the prize. I don't know how the judging process sort of works, but how do you judge what is and isn't a funny book? How do you know when it's funny, when it's not? Because the book that Angela has written is funny, but it's also really serious as well. We'll come to Angela.
Yes.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah, there's a couple of books on the shortlist actually that I think somebody would read, and they might go, well, hang on, that's not an out and out comedy, because I think there is a misconception that all comedy is like, you know, on the same level as a sitcom, for instance, but it's not. If you think about TV comedy, you have studio sitcoms, which are, you know, out and out, you know, rough around the edges, but they're very broad. Then you will have single camera comedies, which will have no laugh track, like Mum, which isn't necessarily a laugh out loud, but you would absolutely call that a comedy. Then there will be all the way down to Black Mirror, which is also a comedy, but is very, very dark and touches on quite serious and intense themes. And I'm really pleased in our shortlist that really there's no book that's like another book that's on it, which is number 1. But also I think, like, especially with Angela's book and with Jeanette's book, those are actually really very serious books, but they are told so brilliantly and with a light touch. I think that there is a real skill to telling profound stories, but in a way that is just, you know, in a very light and beautiful and funny way. So I'm really proud actually of the books that we've got on our shortlist, and that I really think there is something for everybody on it.
Thank you. I'm going to come to Angela. Congratulations, Angela, on your shortlist. Let's see if we can hear you. Hi, Angela. You're in Johannesburg, is that right?
Yes, I am. I'm actually glad I'm on mute because my children have been screaming in the background and I've just been freaking out.
I think it's not a proper digital thinking if you don't get screaming children or barking dogs. So please don't worry about it. So congratulations on being shortlisted, and congratulations on your book, The Blessed Girl. I wonder if we might talk a bit about it for those people who haven't read it, just so they can get the gist of it. Picking up on what Emma was saying, that comedy comes in many guises, and your book is not, it's not uproariously funny. I don't imagine you sat down and thought, I'm going to write a comedy book. It doesn't feel like I'm reading it.
Yeah, no, I was surprised that quite a few people found the humor in it because it was accidental. The essence of it for me was that it was social commentary, because it's about something that is very current here in South Africa. So this is the cover. I don't know how to hold it so that you see it properly. Oh no, okay.
That's it.
Not better.
Yeah.
Okay, so the book focuses on a very popular phenomenon that's kind of blown up in South Africa over the past, I would say, 3 or 4 years. It's basically just an arrangement that has become the norm in urban South Africa, especially where young women, especially in their 20s, have mid to long-term relationships with much older men. And it's called kind of the blessed lifestyle. That's literally kind of the phrase that's used to describe what happens in these relationships. So the girls are viewed, they call themselves sugar babies or blessees, and the men are blessers. So hence kind of a play on the word, the blessed girls. So the central character is Buntletau. She lives in a swanky part of Johannesburg, in a penthouse suite that is paid for by one of her blessers. She juggles 3 different men. Three. And, you know, she thinks that the word men, she actually thinks that the word MEN stands for masculine economic necessities, because these men actually fund this luxurious and glamorous lifestyle that she so proudly kind of displays on social media. But, you know, within this veneer of perfection and glamour and glitz lies somebody who has very serious issues with depression. She has, you know, she's got kind of a distorted view of her life because she is so determined to project a lifestyle that is very shiny, but you know, but her lived experience is much darker than what she puts out there in the world. Yeah. And it's quite important for her to keep up that veneer of perfection.
It's an extraordinary read, actually, because from the very first line on the very first page, Ontle, the heroine of the novel, she's there. She kind of she explodes off the page. She talks directly to you as the reader, which is an unusual thing, and it's like a stream of consciousness, like she's talking into her phone. You know, when people walk around, they're talking into their phone and experiencing their life live. And what I was quite surprised about, and I wonder what you think about this, one of the sort of recurring devices or things that happens as a reader is that she says to you, I can see you judging me, I can see you rolling your eyes. And she sort of talks about the way she set up her life. She has these 3 blessers who she's sort of finding a way to finance her life. And she does, you know, she lies and she lies to herself to some extent and what have you. I found her enormously likable, actually. But I read some reviews of the book where people were saying she's just not a likable person at all. And I just thought that was kind of fascinating. I was wrong-footed by that one, because I really felt that I warmed to her. And where were you at with, I mean, you obviously lived with her, you know, became her in many ways.
Yes, I was also surprised by readers' feedback on the character. I found, especially here in South Africa, maybe because people are quite familiar with the phenomenon and they're familiar with the deception that also comes with it, because it's very much a lifestyle that's lived on Instagram. So the feedback I got from readers is, I fell in love with her in spite of myself. So I wanted to hate her because, she just seems so full of herself, and, she's so delusional, and, she kind of puts this life out there for you to envy. And yet, we know that she's a seriously flawed character because of the lies, because of the deception, not only to the reader, but to herself. But I think it's that vulnerability, the knowing that she's not only lying to us, but that it's very clear that this is an individual who has a deep-rooted personality issues, deep-rooted hurt and pain that she disguises by looking as if, or by projecting this image of perfection. So I think that is it's that vulnerability that readers fall for. A lot of the readers fell for that vulnerability.
And the darkness of her self-deception, world deception, wherever it lies, and her when she goes to sort of mania and then really depressed, she sort of oscillates. Those sections of it are they're tough, and you sort of it doesn't change the pace. It's a pacey read throughout, but it's that's the darkness that is the counterpoint, I suppose, to the the cultural references are really, really interesting. In the first sort of 5 pages, the cultural references like Malcolm Gladwell, Donald Trump, Richard Branson, Gordon Ramsay, this sort of really weird macho male white thing going on. But that darkness is the thing that grounds it.
So I think that was deliberate on my part, because to be honest, when I started writing on the blessed lifestyle, I knew that I was quite judgmental about it myself. Yeah. So I was fascinated by it, because I found that in the beginning it looked like something that was attractive to young women because of the social disparities in South Africa, the economic social disparities in South Africa. So we've got kind of the biggest coefficient in the world. Like, the poor are really, really poor, and the wealthy are ultra wealthy. And so in the beginning, it was kind of, these girls are young, they're vulnerable, these men kind of prey on them. But then as it grew and blew up, it started being something that young women with agency who knew, they knew their story, they were educated, attractive, had their pick of, suitors and all of that, chose the lifestyle very deliberately because of the fact that it gave them access to this glitz and glamour. And so it was important for me, when I decided to write on the subject, I decided to actually write in first person. So I walk in her shoes so that I can kind of understand what it is also that can drive these kind of decisions. And obviously I also spoke to young women in the lifestyle to get a better handle on it. And, obviously you can't just apply this to everyone who's in the lifestyle, but I did find that a few of the women were driven by a sense of insecurity and a sense of always wanting to be affirmed by this association with wealth and this need to be kind of a micro celebrity, like a need to get those Instagram likes and, oh my goodness, you're living the high life and all of that. So I found a lot of deep-seated insecurities, a longing for a lifestyle that seems very inaccessible. And so, because these men avail the lifestyle by availing themselves as suitors, as partners to these women, it just seemed like the easy way to be part of this shiny new South Africa that a lot of these girls come from backgrounds where they could never dream to be part of.
Of course, the words that are used to describe the blessees compared to the words that are used to describe the blessers is very different, and they themselves, it's a very derogatory, sexist and misogynist set of terms for the blessees that is not afforded to the older, married, rich blessers at all. So there's a strong theme of power and sexism in it too.
There's a strong theme of power and sexism, but you know, Buntle's character is very deliberate in not wanting to view herself as a victim. So that's why I keep on talking about agency. So as much as the power balance in these relationships is obvious, on the face of it, it seems obvious. But if you study Buntle's character, she very much, especially in the beginning, is in control of these. So that was deliberate on my part, because I did find that a lot of women in these relationships don't view themselves as victims, because they can choose when they can stop seeing the man. It's not such a power relation where, you know, they are forced. It's not a forced kind of transactional relationship. There is a strong sense of agency, and it was important for me, for this character to have that power, because I didn't want her to be, you know, kind of the ultimate victim. I'm tired of those tropes about women being victims. And in these dynamics with these men, Buntle is very much not the victim. History kind of comes back to haunt her, and it all unravels.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much. I'm going to come to Michelle, if that's okay. I don't know your surname. You're in the chat. You've obviously read the book. Hi, Michelle.
Hi.
What did you make of it?
Oh, so I read it, and first of all, I'd read, I think it's called Crazy Rich Asians. I don't know if anybody else has read that. But it was Crazy Rich Asians is an amazing sort of romp through what it's like to be super rich and Asian. It's so much fun.
It's fiction or non-fiction?
Oh, it's fiction.
Okay.
It's going to be an amazing movie, I believe.
Okay.
And I read The Blessed Girl last week, and what I thought it was really good fun, and I was really rooting for her. Sorry, my alarm went off. But what I thought was really interesting is it kept coming to like moments of possible violence. Honestly, sometimes the protagonist would say something to one of the men, and I was like, well, she's going to be murdered, chopped up in pieces, and hidden away somewhere. But she always just seemed to get to a point of no return and be pulled back. And I find that really interesting, the fact that I think violence was always it just took so far and then pulled back again. And I was wondering, is she just lucky, or, you know, how do things happen?
Michelle, you're also shortlisted.
Oh yeah, but I'm a huge fan here. Let me be anonymous.
Congratulations on your shortlist too.
I know, but this is about The Blessed Girl, and it's so good, and I've already bought it for my friends. I've sent it to a couple of friends. So so actually the friend who sent me Crazy Rich Asians is now reading The Blessed Girl, because I'm like, you need to read it.
Excellent. I'm going to come back to Emma. Emma, you've got the difficult job of judging this incredible shortlist, and it's very different, right? That it's not like, oh, we've got a bunch of similar books and which one just edges it. How on earth are you going to go about deciding? I mean, and I suppose the best question is rather, do you choose it based on what's funniest, based on what's most important, based on what's most relevant? How do you?
I think it's going to be very, very hard. I mean, certainly from the long list judges meeting, it was really interesting how the passions ran through at various levels for different books, and for very different reasons as well. And I think what we're going to have to do on a personal level is just decide which book spoke to us the loudest. And that might not necessarily be the one that was out and out the funniest, but I think a great book is one that stays with you, and so I think I'm going to be looking for that as to which book resonates with me and I'm still thinking about a week later, and moments from it, etc., etc. So I think that's how I'm going to be decided. But Michelle, can I just say, I absolutely adored your book. I loved it. I loved just the bleakness of it. It was sort of like a Ken Loach book. It was sort of, it was amazing. I absolutely adored it. And Angela, I loved the energy of your central character, and what a wicked, terrible woman she was.
They're kind of like opposites, aren't you? You got Magella being
Yes.
this kind of go nowhere, do nothing, zero
Yes.
maintenance, and then you have this ultra glamorous, ultra sassy, takes everything on and wants the whole world and then some more.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, in terms of sort of technique, I was so impressed, Michelle, with how you managed to make a chip shop constantly interesting.
I like chips.
The endless
It was brilliant.
fascination of the
It was
chips.
really brilliantly done.
Thank you.
I'm excited. Yes,
Helen wants
Helen,
to.
look, Helen's waving. Hi, Helen.
I'm unmuted now. God, this is really weird to have a conversation where it's like we're all in senior school, where we're at our desks, and we've got quite a strict geography teacher, not you, and we mustn't overlap. But equally, I just, Emma, well said, as ever. This is why we have, and when I saw Michelle there, because I've interviewed Michelle and Angela, so I've at least read both of your books enough to interview you. I mean, the sexual agency that Angela was talking about is the same with Michelle. And I mean, I almost didn't know whether to read out some of those amazing quotes that Michelle had done. And you just go, this is what female writing is about. It's bold, it's going somewhere. It's like, even the last 5 years it's changed. It's so exciting. Going back to the impossible job that Emma Kennedy has, one of 5 amazing judges who support everything that everyone is doing. Okay, I just want to, so they may or may, when I set up the Quick Prize, what would you say? I would like everybody else's comment on this. So I said, female witty writing is compelling, empowering, connecting, and releasing. You just got to do some words. Then I said criteria: wit, absurdity, irony. The judges are looking for evidence of wit ranging from irony to absurdity, offering laugh out loud moments and a sense of connection, truth, recognition to the reader. Now that sounds like a sort of O-level and discuss. The point is that the winner of any prize is not going to be the best, because there is no best. Because comedy and witty women's content is the last thing to be celebrated in all the other things of celebration. And what if we've achieved anything, it's that we have showcased amazing content. But I think, am I being sort of counter to the purpose of the prize? It's just that there is no such thing as a winner, because you're all winners, because you are all being talked about, and you've kind of arrived at this place, and that we're all now talking about your books. And I think that with comedy, as a comedian myself, in the days when I did it, and Emma will know this as well, as a stand-up comedian, you know very quickly if you're being funny or if you're not. Not everyone likes what I do. Some people do, some people don't, and that's how it has to be. So therefore, it's all about the recognition and the visibility, and that is, we've achieved that.
But it's also what I really love about our shortlist is that all of the books, separately and individually, are about a different sort of female truth, and the reality, the lived reality of the central characters is entirely different in every single book, and I love that. And the only thing I find mildly annoying is that I think that any of the books on our shortlist, if they'd been written by men, would be being taken a lot more seriously. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And why is that, Emma? I mean, she says asking the really obvious.
I genuinely don't know. I'm going to say something contentious.
Do it. Yes.
One of my favourite authors is David Nichols.
Right, yeah.
And he's a very, very successful author, and I think he is a brilliant author. And he writes female fiction. And I think that if David Nicholls was Davina Nicholls, I don't think he would be treated as seriously as he is. I think that's a given.
Merapy Mills, I'm going to bring you in. You're permitted to speak. Unmute.
I am unmuting myself. I have just said I love David Nicholls in capital letters because I do love David Nicholls. He's also, by the way, an incredibly nice man. If
Yeah, he's lovely.
We've all met him. He's just
Lovely
like
guy.
the nicest man. But I think I sort of think you're right, actually. I mean, he writes what are basically rom-coms. That's why I think that they are the Love Actually. But there is a question, and the books are so successful. There's one day, and what was the recent one that was really good? The Romeo and Juliet one.
What's it called? Something.
Yeah, I think I like that one even more. And they are women's books because they are rom-coms. But I think you are right. I think I'm sorry to say, I think you are right. It's also impossible to prove, except you've got all the sort of look. Someone's putting their arm up. I think I can't remember. You're trying to say something. I'm going to say it myself. But
I totally agree. I have to, Merapy Mills. Merapy.
Merapy Mills.
Merapy Mills.
Sweet Sorrow is his latest. Thank you, Robert.
And we love you. And I just got overexcited. Sorry, that because I was slightly thinking I ought to have something cogent to say on this. That I don't want to get into the J.K. Rowling that area, but in terms of the name, the nomenclature, which is actually all we're focusing on at the moment, is obviously that wasn't sold. I don't know what the other authors feel about this. Is so that the authorship wasn't claimed by Joanna, it was J.K. And I mean, it's not the first thing we know. Is it the Brontes? They all had to disguise their name. So it's an age-old thing. And I suppose goes back to your question, Liz, well, also I want to bring it back to we're creating a platform of what should be and the diversity in it, and the fact that we've got a breadth of just amazingly humorous, joyous content. But how interesting that, what is the point that, that if a man, we need to redefine the point, because I forgot the point, but I know the point. What is the point we're making?
I think that the point is that if men had written any of the books on our shortlist, they would be taken, they would be treated far more seriously. I think there is an inherent problem for female writers. I think it is an uphill struggle, and especially if you are writing funny fiction that is even remotely funny, I think you've got an uphill battle to be taken seriously.
And why is that? And what can we do?
No.
I'm going to say one more thing on this, just because this is not a funny author, but a great author who I talked to last week for one of these, Kate Moss with an E, the model. She said for her book Labyrinth, an adventure book, not a comedy book, but an adventure book, that the first draft that the publisher showed her of the cover had flowers all around it. Yeah. And she had to say, and she started the Women's Prize, obviously the Women's Prize for Fiction, and she said, take the flowers off. And
I have the exact same problem.
And of course the actual book that went out that was incredibly successful with men and women, an adventure book like Dan Brown, had a sort of maze, totally non-flowery.
I think this does start with the publisher, actually. That the problem begins right there, is that if you just look at covers, you can see the books that they're taking seriously and the books that are there, to be cannon fodder, for want of a better word. Or the books that they think only women over 50 will buy, so they have to have a certain sort of cover to satisfy that. And then you look at sort of, I can't imagine that men have to go through this ridiculous charade of deciding what sort of flowers or birds that they have to have on their cover in order to
What did you have to take off the cover of your book, Emma? Was it flowers? Hearts? Flowers? Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
I'm going to come to Yasmin, who has asked a very interesting question. I'm just remembering I was going down the stairs not too long before lockdown actually happened, and somebody said to me, going down the steps coming out of the Tortoise newsroom, he said to me, how would you feel about Elena Ferrante if those books had been written by a man? And I was like, OMG, are you telling me it? Because there's a bit of a, it's all a big scandal, like, is it really her and who is she and all that stuff, the Elena Ferrante Neapolitan novels. And I thought to myself, gosh, I don't know, because those books are such a sort of female experience and female friendship, and it just did it. And I really didn't know how to answer the question. But Yasmin, if you're there, are you there?
Hi.
Nice to see you. Your question is there's a punchy one. Put it to the people.
So I was wondering if any of the authors would consider using a male pen name. If the argument is that it would perform better if it was written by a man, arguably using a male pen name would reverse that. And then the question is it ethical to do so? The question for me is like, are we, folks have used male pen names in the past as a way to sort of get published and to get their voices out there and so on. And arguably we shouldn't have to do that now because, things are a little fairer, if not totally equitable. But I often think like, my name is Yasmin Abdul Majid. If I use the name Tom Smith all the time when I'm booking things. All the time. I never use my actual name. Like, why? Why would I use my name?
Mine.
Sorry.
Before we discuss anything else, I feel like we really need to give Yasmin's top a round of applause because it's so magnificent.
Thank you.
I'm clapping that, but can you hear me? Can you hear me? I would love to hear what our two authors, other authors rather, feel about that with their Michelle and Angela
What do you think? I'm trying to unmute Angela. There you go. Angela, what do you think?
It's a very interesting question, especially for me, because I have two novels that are crime thrillers, which is not a very big genre here in South Africa in terms of, authors. It's a popular genre from a reader point of view, but there's very few writers writing crime in South Africa. And so it's so interesting because immediately I thought of my first novel, which is titled Red Ink, and it's about a serial killer, a young woman who's a journalist who reaches out to a serial killer just after he's been sentenced, and then wanting kind of an exclusive interview with him behind bars. And the serial killer responds a few years after she writes the letter to him. She goes to visit him and then decides to write his life story. And I found that, so that was my debut novel. And I found that of all my novels, that is the one that has resonated the most with male readers. I've had men come up to me and say, oh my goodness, when are you writing a sequel? And so on and so forth. And it's a strange thing because immediately when Yasmin asked the question, I actually wondered if I'd written it as, I don't know, Angelo Makholwa or something like that, if it would have done even better. But having said that, I do find that, especially from a South African perspective, women are reading much more than men, and they're reading much more fiction than men are, which is why the whole term chick lit is so ridiculous, because the audience that you're writing for is predominantly female, and women are writing, men and women are writing so many different genres, which is one of the things that I think is so fabulous about this prize, is that it's literally acknowledging that women, you can't call women's fiction a genre. That's calling a genre by gender. It's cutting through the wide spectrum of different offerings of writing that women who are writing today are putting out into the world. And it's so diverse that it needs to be acknowledged for what it is, because what do we call, as you refer to several male writers that easily kind of taper off into the realm of this is the kind of writing that appeals to women. So do we call that dicklit? What do we call it, you know? So it's quite important to start having a very serious discussion about the fact that we are so diverse in our writing, and that people that are reading us are also a diverse audience. And so we shouldn't be ashamed actually to be writing thrillers or, you know, I don't even know, you can't even call this is not a romance. It's kind of, like I'm saying, it's social commentary. So, you know, we need to be able to claim it and own it, because the world is changing, and readers are changing, readers' tastes are changing.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm tempted, she won't thank you for this, but I'm tempted to come to Katie, who is co-founder of Tortoise and my boss, because what we're talking about is marketing. Look at her. There she is. Hi, Katie.
Hi.
Hi. You want to A/B test the shit out of this, the flowers on the book covers thing. Oh, and she frozen.
I've got terrible Wi-Fi.
No, try it. Say it quick.
I want to A/B test. I just think that I don't know where the issue is. Is the issue with the creatives? Is the issue with the consumer? Is the issue just where is it totally in the system? And I would just want to understand a little bit more about whether if you could do 2 covers, you could prove that actually it's an issue further up the chain.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can hear me. My Wi-Fi is absolutely terrible. I'm so sorry.
Thank you very much. Helen's got her hand up.
I don't know if I don't know if this is the answer, and also I would love to hear from Michelle. I don't know where her picture is, as our other one of our other amazing, incredibly mind-blowing authors. What is the issue? Well, we know that so we're going to go back to Michelle, but can I just say this tiny point, and then because we know in publishing, many like 80% of women are in publishing, but only like 5% are in the boardroom. And we know that in terms of those people who review things, and this is all true. I mean, it sounds so old-fashioned. I mean, I'm an old woman, so this prejudice was going on in the 80s when I started. But the reviewers are men. We have evidence of the story that it has been told that win awards are about men, and we have a very small percentage at the top who are men. And I don't know, it's a very good question. I'm just throwing it out because people have written and researched this. In this day and age, all we can do with comedy, then you throw in comedy, and quite rightly, people are talking about their books and what. I knew that comedy and wit is the last thing that anyone can control or define, but it is empowerment, and it is so strong for women to be able to have their voice. So we're trying to recognize something that is thus far not really recognized with women anyway. It threatens because ugly, foolish, vulnerable, challenging representations of womankind is a problem for men, and we know that as a stand-up. We know that that's awkward. So we're talking about comedy on top of a lack of visibility. So we've got a double whammy, and we've got evidence of how prizes tend not to reward women and or comedy. So we've got quite a lot of factors against us. What is can we go to Michelle, because we haven't heard from her, and well, enough.
Are you okay to comment on?
I guess the thing is that I kind of don't see why we just don't have an anonymous submissions process for manuscripts that go into a diverse publishing team who assess them on their merits, rather than is this a male or a female? Is this a person of color? Is this somebody who's from Indigenous race? Is this somebody who's Black? I think removing not just the sex and gender thing from the room is, let's remove all of it and just see, does this text, do these words resonate, is one thing. But I do know that in publishing, very much it's almost like you need to have a CV so they can see how they can sell you as a person in behind whoever your character is. So it's not just who is your character, but who are you. I find gender and sex quite interesting. I think you might be a female sex like I am, but you know, in terms of gender, I would say, you know, I don't really pin myself on any board anywhere. So when I'm taken on to say something like a women in fiction panel, I'm always a bit panicky because I'm like, I'm not really that girly, and am I going to be girly enough, and how can I be girly enough to be on this panel? So I think when you walk into a bookshop, if you don't feel like you're a woman's woman and you see your book under, you know, women's fiction, that can be quite a disconnect. So there are structural problems on many layers with all of that. But when I first wrote what became Big Girl Small Town, it was a short story featuring a man who, everything was the same. It was a chip shop, there was an alcoholic mother, the disappeared father, everything was very miserable and dark. And it featured a man, and the short story got picked up immediately and, you know, was published in Ireland, and it was all great. But I changed it into a female because I thought it was a lot more interesting to kind of work with this female voice, this kind of invisible person I felt who was also in the chipper. But I got zero interest when I had a female protagonist.
Oh,
and
wow.
I strongly feel if I'd stuck with Cormac, it was, you know, the sad white Irish male in a chip shop, I think it would have got somewhere faster than doing an overweight Irish female, also who's non-neurotypical. So
Yeah.
I think what's interesting is removing all these kind of labels that make people think they know what they're getting inside the book.
Yeah, interesting. And I mean, we've talked for years in the corporate world about blind recruitment and, you know, let's just take all the names off the CVs, let's take the dates of birth off the CVs, let's take school names off the CVs. It doesn't happen.
It doesn't remove unconscious bias. So, I mean, Amazon created an artificial intelligence recruitment AI. Like, AI came in and it went, we basically know that this CV is probably a female, so we're not going to even look at it because we think, judging on everything we know from everything that already happens in Amazon, we think that the CV is probably a bit shit because it's female. So it's hard. We really need to not just say we're removing the names and the labels, but we need to tackle our internal biases and our internal prejudices. Like all of us, you know, including women who think women experience prejudices, but there are other groups who experience
layers, for sure.
Yeah.
Thanks, Michelle. Thank you very much. And I'm sorry that we've rather ambushed you joining us.
I was just here to drink.
Right, quite right too. I'm going to come back to Angela. We've only got 10 minutes left. I just wanted to ask you, Angela, because you, as you mentioned before, you've written crime fiction before. I'm not a crime fiction fan. I'm not oriented to that. I kind of read other stuff. And we said before that you didn't sort of sit down with the blessed girl to write a funny book, but you had this idea and it's social commentary and what have you. As a writer, changing gear, and now I suppose what I'm getting at is now that the Blessed Girl has been shortlisted in a sort of comedy fiction prize, is that strange for you? I mean, obviously it's great to be shortlisted for anything, but do you know what I mean? Does it feel odd to be in that category with this book?
It's only, okay, so when the book first came out, a lot of the comments that I received was, oh my goodness, this book is hilarious. And then until it isn't, you know, I mean, it starts out, for some people, it is kind of laugh out loud hilarious. So it was an unexpected reaction from the get-go, because as much as I kind of my humorous cap came on, but it wasn't really a conscious decision to make it a funny novel. And I think I just kind of rolled with this. With my initial idea of the character was to not make her kind of this really cheeky, funny girl. It was, I don't know, it was just to reflect on this life, you know? And so as I got more comments about that, then I suppose that's what prepared me eventually when, you know, I got longlisted for the prize. But as I said, I didn't set out to write a funny novel, and I've just actually completed another manuscript, and I gave it to a friend to read, and she said, "Oh, but it's not as funny as your other work." And I thought, when did I become a funny writer? It was never my intention. I mean, I started writing dark thrillers. How did I get here? I'm happy to be here, but it wasn't really my intention.
Yeah, interesting. Thank you very much. I'm going to come to Sumit Sharma, who's in the chat. You said a few things at the very beginning in the chat. Sumit, are you there? Hi.
Yeah, yes, I am. Hi.
I love this point you've just been making. This might be contentious, ... That's always a good start.
Yeah. So I think that is because, you know, this is something we don't address. That there is this sort of a DNA kind of a prejudice in our heads, and I won't say it is in male heads alone. It's just you know, just like you'll find women propagating patriarchal values. You do find, you know, a vast majority of readers who will look at a male name and psychologically conceive that this might be a serious work or a more work of more quality or work that can be enjoyed more. I mean, nothing could be further from truth. But the fact is, like, the other day I was reading this coronavirus story, this like a fiction story on the Telegraph newspaper. And on the very first episode of the story, they said, remove these vagina novels from my shelf. The husband is telling the wife, because there is Hilary Mantel on the shelf. So, I mean, if Hilary Mantel is a vagina novel, I didn't know where we are going with this. So that's the point I wanted to make. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks, Sumit. God. First of all, the concept of a vagina novel, interesting. Second of all, Hilary Mantel. I mean, I was interested, we did a thinking, and you know what? To my shame and embarrassment, I can't remember who the speaker was. But the only book that was visible in their vast bookshelf behind them, the only one that you could read the spine of, it said Hitler. And I just thought, you would think that you would have taken it down. Anyway, that's just an aside. I'm going to come to Paul Atherton because, first of all, slightly because it's thanks to Paul that we're here at all this evening, because he's an old buddy of Helen's and introduced us when we did the Thinking last time. Hi, Paul. He's also kind of the heart and soul of Tortoise, really, if we're honest. The whole thing comes crashing down. Hi, Paul.
Hello. How are we?
Nice to see you. Good, thank you. Always with the hat and the glasses. Weigh in about Sue Townsend while we're at it. Why don't you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, one of the struggles I was having is, like, I've read tons of female authors, and I thought I haven't read a sort of a funny author. I've not been able to get hold of Helen's book yet, unfortunately, but that is definitely going to be put right shortly. But then, yeah, tracking back to my youth, of course, I absolutely fell in love with Adrian Mole, and it took me quite a while to kind of trigger off that, of course, this was written by a middle-aged woman, because the characterization is just so good. And I was reading it probably about a year older in real terms. So he's 13 3/4. I was about 15, 16 when I read it. And it just captured the essence of what you were going through. And I think that's the greatest writing of all. When, you know, you don't know in fact, you don't care who the author is. You know, you're just absorbed by the work and the reading, and you get excited about what you can actually sort of engage with in the text.
Yeah, totally agree. Thanks, Paul. Nice to see your face. But there's some chat about 50 Shades of Grey, which I don't know if I can bring myself to talk about it. Do we need to feel this fire? I mean, I don't want to, you know. I'm going to come back to Helen. Helen's cringing. Hi, Helen. Oh, hang on, we need to unmute you. There we go.
I'm unmuted. I am the social glue for any debate, as you know.
We've only got 3 minutes left.
Yes,
so I want to come back to you because you're going to announce your winner on the 12th of September. Yeah. And in between now and then, there's, you know, other people, Emma and other people, marrying kids and whatever, doing their judging on Zoom.
And Angela and Michelle, and amazing. We just really want to have this window of time to, in whatever way we can. And like Emma's been so prolific and explained the canvas really well, I think. Well, I know. Because she's a practitioner, knows what she's talking about, is to celebrate these people and take this moment. We've got a moment to do this, and it's lovely for me to be here to think that it is making waves that has to continue. You know, we're doing something really interesting because of all your comments and the history and the impact and the complexity. This isn't that simple, but we celebrate these amazing authors.
It feels to me important. It was interesting when I heard Paul say, oh, I'd have to really try and think about the last time I read a funny book written by a woman, and I thought about my own reading, and I thought, gosh, what have I read this year? And it's pretty miserable, if I'm really honest. I do tend to read female books written by women rather than books written by men. I don't know why that is. I just sort of do. But there's not loads of massive lulls. Katie's had a good idea, which is if we put the list of 20 books I need to buy in the Tortoise app, we all buy them. We can change the bestseller list, right? Because you only need 10,000 sales to do the bestseller thing, and that feels to me like a good reason to do anything. In addition to the ones, obviously, that you are, it doesn't have to be even necessarily be funny or old, maybe old books from the past. What do you think is a book that must be read? What's a book you must read before you die?
You asking me?
Yeah.
Okay, because it's by a man, so I'm just saying, because it's come into my head.
Right.
I laughed at Starter for 10. David Nichols has been mentioned.
Yeah.
And I think Starter for 10 that was made into a film, and I don't know if Michelle and Angela know that. I'm just saying, just remember a book that you read and you laughed out loud. And that's what an achievement. What an achievement.
Let's come to Emma. Can you do the same? What's a book that you read that you remember that you laughed out loud? There's two of us trying to unmute you. I'm going to do it. Wait.
The 10th bucket of me.
Oh, yes. Yes. I laughed at that.
Say it again.
The 10th bucket of me. Oh, who wrote that? Oh. No. Let me pick one. I'm trying to think of a contemporary book. Oh, I know. This is another thing. A lot of the very funniest books are actually written for children.
Yes.
But Mr. Gum.
Oh my God, so funny.
Mr. Gum is one of the greatest series of books ever written.
What a pleasure to read that to my children.
Yes.
It's so good. So good. Thank you. I'm going to put that on the list. Let's come to Angela. Make us a killer recommendation of a book that will make us laugh out loud. Hang on, unmute. Here we go.
Got a really good.
Oh no. It was sorry. Oh no.
We can't hear you.
Yes, now.
Hear me now.
Yes. Sorry.
My bad.
That was my fault.
Got a really good one that I read very recently. I actually read it during this lockdown. It's called, I'm sure I don't know if you've heard of this book. It's called The Secret Lives of Baba Segi's Wives by Lola Shaheen.
I've read it.
Hilarious. I loved it.
I've read it.
Hilarious. And the other one, I read it a while back. I'm sure you know this one. I can't remember the writer's name. You know this writer's name. It's The Sound of No Hands Clapping. I actually liked the book.
Yeah.
We turned into the movie. Didn't like the movie as much, but I liked. It's Adrian. No, I can't remember the name. Sorry.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Excellent. I'm going to go cheekily to Michelle. Put her on the spot. Is she still there? Michelle?
Unmute her.
Yes, unmute. Yes, Michelle. Hit us with a killer recommendation for a hilarious book.
Really, really going to say, and I think picture books are where it's at sometimes during the pandemic, but this is 5 Minutes Peace, which is a picture book by, who is it? Jill Murphy. And it basically features this mama elephant who wants 5 minutes peace to have a bath. And she has 3 children and they don't want to give her 5 minutes peace. And it's basically maybe 24 pages of my life. I mean, Mrs. Elephant is drinking something out of a teacup and she says it's tea. I know that it's not tea.
Definitely.
She does get her cup of tea, which keeps her going longer than you might expect. But whatever that, what was it? Yeah, 5 minutes peace it's called. I strongly recommend it to anybody who needs 5 minutes peace.
That's a good recommendation. Well, we're 2 minutes over, and that's a terrible, heinous crime in the world of tortoise. But I've just been enjoying myself a bit too much. And I want to say a really, really big thank you to Angela, to Emma, and to Helen for being here this evening, to Michelle for accidentally agreeing to participate in the Thinking without realising it. But thank you very much, Michelle, as well. To everybody who's come on and asked questions and contributed, and it's just been a real pleasure to spend an hour talking about brilliant women writing brilliant books, and it makes me want to go and pick up a copy and read it. So thank you so much. And if we were in the newsroom, we would be doing a uproarious round of applause and all go and drink bad wine together and have a jolly time. We can't do that, so let's drink bad wine separately, and I'll just say thank you very much and wave. Thank you very much. Have a nice rest of the day. Bye.